This is going to be an extra special version of the Performance Place video podcast today. Now, I'm going to have on a doctor. His name is Dr. Kolby Condos. He's a chiropractor in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. He's going to be talking about biofeedback as a way to rehab and prevent injuries for the knee specifically. I know we'll jump around a little bit, but also too, there's a test called STAR Excursions test, which he showed a study which basically shows beyond reasonable doubt that you can prevent and predict injuries, lower extremity injuries, on athletic populations, especially D1 athletes. I think the rough number was into the 80% predictive range. So today, listen to the entire podcast, share with friends, and if you're in Grand Rapids and you have a knee condition, go see him. He's a great guy. He's honest. Here we go. All right, everyone, this is Dr. Kolby Condos, spelled like the condos in your apartment complex. So, Dr. Kolby, hey, say what's going on.
Not much, man. What's going on with you?
Nothing much. I'm staring at a wall as we do this. I want a bigger studio, honestly, is what I want.
Yeah, I think that's generally what all of us want, is more space and bigger house, fancier cars, something like that, right?
Yeah, I think people actually, I feel like your conversation is better if you can be staring out at a lake with like mooses around it or something, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, man. I live in northern Minnesota, so that's actually a pretty good possibility for me.
So in your area, so I've only been to Minnesota one time. Is it rural where you're at, or is it like?
Yeah, I live in Grand Rapids, and it's like a town, hovers between that 10,000, 15,000 people range, depending on the time of year. As far as rural, well, I grew up in like a small town in southwest Wyoming, so I guess to me it's maybe a booming metropolis, but for most people probably more rural.
How many people lived in was there a lot of people that lived in your hometown?
No, like 1,200, I think. My graduating class was like 38 kids.
Wait, that's at a high school, or?
Yeah, that was my high school graduating class.
Holy
so
crap.
It was pretty small, and that was like, spread out. It's more like a ranching community, so it was really, really spread out all over the place.
So when everyone got together for like a school dance, did you like dance with only 10 girls and that was like you maxed out before you came back around again?
Oh yeah, and like 10 of the 10, like 8 of them were my cousins, so.
Better reason to leave town.
Oh yeah.
We almost call that homeschooling.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, I'll see you at the family reunion tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
To your whole class.
So Doc, I want to have you on today because you presented some nice research to me about how to prevent lower-level, non-traumatic athletic injuries, talking about biofeedback. So when we go through this a little bit, can you make it really simple for patients to understand, but also throw in some gold nuggets for doctors to really love?
Yeah, man, absolutely. So you look at athletic injuries, and a large majority of these injuries are non-contact injuries, and you look at it and it's like, well, that doesn't make sense, right? So you're looking at like football players and you're like, how is someone getting a knee injury with no contact? When you think about football, you think big hits and stuff like that, but the majority of the injuries to the lower extremity, at least, are actually non-contact injuries. So the clinical gem basically is, when I look at how these non-contact injuries happen, the thing that sets me apart is, I guess, I ask why. Is it a functional imbalance? Is there some sort of like neurological bias going on? So as I dove a little bit deeper in the research, I found that there was some things that kind of added up to kind of pinpoint people who are maybe predisposed to lower extremity injuries greater than somebody else. One of the big interesting things that I found is it's more common in females. Mm-hmm. And also the status of the athlete. So if it's like, a recreational athlete, probably not as likely to develop a lower extremity injury as someone who's like a starting level lineman in the college, So I thought that was really interesting. So yeah,
So higher level, like I know that once it was a Division I study. So higher level have a higher potential of non-traumatic injuries to the lower extremity.
Yeah, and actually on top of that, they actually broke it down a little bit further. So, people who are getting the starting reps or who are like with, the number ones were more likely to develop a non-contact lower extremity injury than someone who was like on the practice squad or was redshirting.
Huh. Oh, so I guess we should let everyone know too. We do plan on going into some things they can then test and do on their own later, right? So they hang around.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
um, Actually, I should mention it too that so I don't know if it's your end or my end, but you call those you call those info lines, and when it's dead time, it sounds like someone's typing on the computer.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's your end or mine, but I hear it.
Oh, I don't think it's mine. I'm not typing on my computer or anything. So,
You don't have a call center over there that so there's someone next to you just clacking away at like those old IBM keyboards.
oh yeah, they're trying to sound busy. Like, oh, this call center's stacked.
So, how did you actually decide that looking into, like, do you have a story where, like, you wanted to all of a sudden, what was the one thing where you thought, I need to look into biofeedback for these injuries?
Well, so the area of Minnesota that I'm in is like a hockey factory, right? It's just there's always, kids getting drafted in the NHL, and there's always kids going Division 1 hockey out of here. In fact, last year Grand Rapids took state in hockey, and they had 3 kids that are D1 recruits. And I guess really the big part for me that made me interested in like maybe the care and prevention of like lower extremity injuries is, some of these guys are missing valuable ice time, or you have a star basketball player and they go down with a non-contact injury. And one of the things that really, really piqued my interest in lower extremity injuries as far as like non-contact stuff was when the Vikings starting quarterback Teddy Bridgewater went down with a knee injury that was non-contact.
Oh,
And on top of that, it was his non-plant leg that got injured. So I was really like, well, what is that? Why is that? So I guess that's kind of how I went off on this tangent about researching, lower extremity, non-contact lower extremity injuries.
Bridgewater was like, that was like when you were watching football he was in the 90s, right?
Well, Bridgewater was like last year. He was their first round draft pick, I think.
Oh, I haven't been watching football in the last year.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple of years ago, but he went down, I believe, last year with a non-contact, non-plant, in his non-planting leg injury, where it was so grotesque. Like they actually thought they were going to have to amputate at one point, I think. So that, I just wondered to myself, how is it that this guy is like performing at the highest level of football, and he goes down with a lower limb injury with no contact and in a non-weight bearing joint at that point, basically.
So I'm sure you've watched that video a couple times. Then I'm sure there's one out there, right?
Not that I've found actually.
Really?
So
because I feel
just a lot of, like, I guess, recounts of the incident by teammates and training staff and stuff like that.
So how do you think, like, what do you think actually went down with that? Like,
man, it gets so complex at that point because, your body's just a receptor-based system, basically, and you're always getting feedback from your body, especially, like joints and stuff like that. So what I believe happened, and actually I talked through this with a professor from the Carrick Institute, which is like the neurology institute that I did my neurological diplomate training through. And basically what it comes down to is you think, we're the receptor-based system, inside of our muscles are muscle spindles, we have Golgi tendon organs, we have Meissner corpuscles, Pacinian corpuscles. We have all these receptors that basically provide a map of where that, extremity is in space. And one of the important things when you look at the extremities is muscle mass. Basically sensitivity and gain are inverse. So if a muscle is concentrically contracted, the sensitivity of that muscle goes up, so you have increased spatial awareness of that muscle around that joint, right? So Bridgewater's at the back of his drop. His left leg is eccentrically loaded because he's getting ready to throw, right? Mm-hmm. Well, when you eccentrically load that muscle, you're no longer getting those muscle spindles firing as high. So the sensitivity goes down and the gain goes up. And I think that he basically just lost awareness of where that joint is, and it just dislocated.
Okay. So with how would someone get awareness again for an eccentrically loading muscle or joint?
Man, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, and that's where the biofeedback comes into this. Even if it's firing loops in your brain via visualization, that's a form of biofeedback. You could have the patient doing, or the athlete or whoever doing, exercises using resistance bands or weight or whatever. There's just a lot of strategies that you can use to really increase, the awareness of the joint and the lower extremities using various forms of biofeedback.
Yeah. So when you were growing up, I'm guessing you were playing hockey, right?
No, because I grew up in Wyoming, we didn't even have hockey. I wrestled.
Oh, is there biofeedback for wrestling? Is there ways that you can? Well, give me some examples, I guess, of ways you can use biofeedback with, say, wrestling. I'm guessing you didn't when
Yeah,
you were younger, right?
I did biofeedback, yeah. I mean,
Or did you do
oh,
biofeedback when you were in high school?
well, yeah. I mean, when you wrestle, you think a lot of it is just visualizing. Like before you do it, I'm going to do this move. Say you're going to do a fireman's carry. What do I have to do that fireman's carry? And then you can just walk yourself through stuff like that. And then we would do a lot of, like guided meditation. That's a form of biofeedback. You could use. We used to do a lot of, drilling in the mirror versus yourself. Basically like shadow boxing, only not with a shadow. So you're using the mirror in your own reflection and you're watching yourself do these drills. Well, that's biofeedback. So I did a lot of stuff like that too.
Okay.
I probably wasn't as into it then as I am now because, of the profession I chose to go into.
Yeah. So how did your coach decide to add those things in? Because I don't think so I played high school baseball and just started in college, and we didn't really do anything that I could think of that really was of that nature,
He didn't do it a whole lot. I don't think that it was as maybe big then as it is getting now. You look at all these guys who are like, yeah, I have, I go to specialized trainers that do biofeedback, so it's getting more notoriety now that the people who are in at the elite levels are doing it. But I would say when he would do a lot of stuff like guided meditation with us before, duels against the other team. He would do a lot of positive self-talk. And then even when we were drilling, he would be like, I want you to think about what you're doing. I want you to really, really break down the movement and then do the movement, so it helped. Not a lot of injuries.
That's good. So I guess I want to be able to paint a picture for people, or if you can paint a picture of when you go to someone who's trying to design some biofeedback exercise or activities for somebody. Is there a certain protocol that you usually have to go and see that they're deficient in something, or is it just kind of like you just throw these exercises in and that stuff?
Well, this is where the research came in a little bit. So there's a paper that I found. It's called the STAR Excursion Balance Test, right? So they basically took this study and they designed this study to figure out if people were more likely to get injuries to their lower extremities based on the findings, right? So what this test is it's basically got, two overlying X's so that the lines go out at 45 degrees, and you have the patient barefoot and you have them follow the certain planes of the X, like anteriorly, and then you measure, from the center of it to their furthest distance of their toe without placing their foot on the ground. So it's also like a balance test. And then they found that people who had larger aberrancies side to side in their anterior reach were more likely to develop lower extremity injuries than someone who was closer side to side.
Okay. So just differences of side to side, not necessarily.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I mean, the study also found that people are not going to cause any sort of damage by using biofeedback. It's not going to hurt anybody, but the consequences of not doing it were larger than people doing it who didn't need it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm thinking about that test there. So you get the intersecting X's. So you want them to go along the line to the end point of the line.
Yeah.
So
well, as far as they can reach without putting their foot down.
Okay. So does it matter where they actually touch down or the path they take to get there? Is there that part of the?
So it wants to be linear. I'll actually send you a video to a website that I found. Because when I first found it, I'm like, what is this STAR Excursion Balance Test? So I researched it a little bit more, and I actually found a website that kind of shows how the exam is performed. So I'll send you that link, and you can link it in the bottom of the podcast or whatever, so people can see that as well. But it's really it breaks down components when you break down the test. It's like a lot of spatial awareness of where that limb is that's being tested, also testing balance on the other side.
Yeah. So I know that you guys, with functional neurologists, they seem to really have, or so they do eyes open, eyes closed, different perturbing factors, right? For tests like this sounds like this test doesn't have eyes open, eyes closed, or can you add that to it? And
That's something you could definitely add to. I personally, if I were to use this like in my practice, I wouldn't have it as a standalone test. I would do it in conjunction with a lot of other stuff like Romberg's or Fukuda's step test. This is basically what I would do is I would use it to as a conjunctive test.
okay, yeah, I looked at that study you sent me. It was interesting to see at the very end that said it was roughly about 82% accuracy with predicting injury.
Yeah, yep.
It was great.
Yeah, I mean it was a very well done study. It seems like they took a lot of initiative to make sure that there was no biases as far as like between examiners and stuff like that. So they took a lot of steps to make sure it was a really well done study.
So when I was looking at that, I kept thinking because I do a test similar like it. I call it STARS test here, but it's actually not. I don't remember where I saw it. I didn't see it on this study, but I've been doing it for a couple of years. But it's mainly just single X. So I told them 12, 3, 6, 9, so on. And well, I've noticed that some kids, and actually I sent this out to Dr. Mike. I sent him a video of this one kid doing even a Romberg's test, and I couldn't tell if he was just a newborn baby giraffe or if he just could not like the kid was only like 14. It's just he just seemed like he had no coordination whatsoever. So I was thinking like with a test like this, is there, how kids are growing and they just seem to have no control of their limbs until they hit past puberty.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some type of, I know this was on D1, wasn't it? Can this be
Yeah.
done with youth, or is there like a exclusion to it?
Yeah, no, I think that it's valuable to everybody, Yeah, they're uncoordinated, but that can also maybe help guide you in the direction that you want your therapy to go with that particular, individual. Um, my wife has a patient. My wife's also a chiropractor. My wife has a patient, and this kid is like 13, 14, and the kid's uncoordinated. He's always injured, and this is some stuff that we've looked at implementing with him, and he's gotten some good results with it as well. So I don't think that it really has an age limit per se, but I think that the way you apply your findings is going to, dictate a little bit how you apply that.
Yeah. I saw the other study you sent me was on, it was basically on ACL prevention, right?
Right, right.
So can you go into a little bit with, I know neuromuscular training has been around a little while for ACL injuries, and I did have someone else talking about it on a podcast as well, but we came to the conclusion that it seems like the information's been out there, but then coaches don't always adopt it.
Right.
So can you give me a little bit more on neuromuscular training and why it works with knee injuries and ACL and so on?
Yeah. So when you look at that study, all right, I've read those two studies so much it's kind of hard I can't remember what's in what. Basically, what they're finding is knee abduction movements are what are causing ACL tears. So I think it says like between 70 and 80% of all ACL tears are non-contact. So that just shows me that people don't really know where their joints are at in space, or they're not loading, they're not using proper biomechanics when they're performing a certain movement. And it also shows that, females are more likely to suffer an ACL tear. Well, why is that? They have a little bit more valgus variabilities in their lower extremities. So how would you, I'm way off topic here, I guess. What was the exact question? I can't remember.
I don't know. I have a tendency of doing long-winded questions. The last dude I actually interviewed, I asked him like a 3-part question, and he formulated it together into like a good essay. I'm like, dude, you're probably great at the AP test in high school. Just writing random. So I guess Mike, I wanted you to explain a little bit with neuromuscular training and why, like, correlate into biofeedback and why it helps with preventing knee injuries.
Right. So big thing with preventing knee injuries is going to be like, do they have an imbalance? What is the imbalance? What are some exercises or biofeedback mechanisms that we can use to correct those imbalances, and how do we implement them? That's kind of what you want?
Yeah.
Okay, so, identifying it, you can use a variety of stuff, like the STAR Excursion balance testing. That was a really good one. You can go through, you can like visualize when they're breaking down regular athletic movements, squats, jumping, stuff like that. And then you also have to be sport specific. What a soccer player uses is not going to be the same basic movement as someone who plays tennis. You know what I mean? So you have to look at the dynamic movements within the sport, I would think. And then as far as like implementing it, well, once you've identified in an individual what those imbalances are, you can develop a set of strategies to kind of correct that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a patient, for instance, say you have a patient who can't do the star excursion balance test because, every time they stand on their left foot, to reach, they fall. Well, is that because they don't have any awareness of where their right foot's at, or is it left foot? I would argue that, standing on your left foot would be more of a left cerebellar test. So then you can explore other options to like confirm that. Okay, yeah, she rotates to her left during Fukuda's test. When you put her in a Romberg's stance, she falls to her left. She has all these findings that indicate left cerebellar stuff. Well, then you can kind of add adjunct therapies to stimulate the left cerebellum, whether that's like extremity adjusting or, complex movements on the left. So there's a lot of different ways of applying biofeedback, and it's just applying it in a manner that's really targeted. So I guess there's not one size fits all for every single patient, unless you want to do, 5 exercises. Yeah, all 5, if you do 5 exercises with resistance bands, kettlebells, putting them on a perturbed surface while catching a medicine ball in a squat position, like all that thing would benefit people, and it's not going to hurt them by any means. But once you have the findings for the individual, then you can really tailor your treatment plan to that one specific person.
Okay. So so that was a bit right there. I'm going to ask a couple questions that probably people that are just general public are thinking. What is the cerebellum?
Okay, so the cerebellum is a chunk of tissue at the back of your brain, and it's really involved. We're just beginning to we're still getting new information all the time about how pivotal the cerebellum is to like cortical function and stuff. But, as far as like what really the layman can think the one major function the cerebellum affects and dictates their everyday life is balance. So if you have poor cerebellar function, you're going to have poor balance.
Okay. What are some things that can affect someone's cerebellar function? Like, say they have full control of it when they're younger, but all of a sudden they lose it.
Oh, I mean, traumatic brain injury would be a big one. There's people who have like an Arnold-Chiari malformation, which would be like, where you get part of their cerebellum going down through the hole in the base of your skull. There's a lot of things that can do it. Some stuff is just like a functional thing where they develop like, one side develops a little bit harder than the other. I mean, you can go as far in detail as you want. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff with like, immune reactivity that can affect the cerebellum. It's a can of worms.
Okay. So it doesn't have to be a trauma-based thing. It could be.
No.
Okay. Because I know that actually I've spoken to Dr. Mike about. By the way, everyone, if you want to reference, I think that's 30. No, I think it's 42. I'll put the link. I'll put the link below in the show notes as well, to the other interview I'm referencing. He was talking about Romberg's test, or you've spoken about Romberg's test. Can you explain that a little bit? Because you've said it a couple times.
Yeah. So Romberg's test, you can do it on a perturbed surface or non. I prefer to do on both, and then I actually like to do it with their eyes open and eyes closed, because visual loops and stuff like that. Basically, what it is, you have the individual take their shoes off and they stand with their feet as close as they can together, and you just observe the sway of the patient. And it's really the initial direction of the sway that you're more interested in. And yeah, I mean, they sway into the side of, this is simplifying it a bit, but they sway into the side of the soft lesion, or the underperforming cerebellum, we'll say.
Got it. Yeah, I know it's a huge conversation, isn't that?
Oh yeah, in itself, it's so crazy.
Yeah, I texted a couple of people, and I just said, because I was looking online, I was looking for I don't know why I was looking it up. I looked up Romberg's test, and it was just really, I found a page that wasn't really amazing, so I wondered why everyone was searching it, because there was a large search volume for it. So I texted a couple people and I said, can you tell me about Romberg's test and what you like and don't like about it? And they're like, can we do a phone call? Like they wouldn't like text back because it was going to be so extreme.
Yeah, yeah, it's so in depth, it's crazy. And it's so useful. It's such an easy test. I mean, you don't have to have any special equipment for it. Take your shoes off, put your feet together, close your eyes.
Yeah. The so going back to all that the stars, excursion test, and so on. Can you list? Because I know we've jumped around a little bit. Can you list a handful of things that can affect someone's performance on that?
Yeah, so obviously because it's a single foot, that's holding the weight of the other extremity, that the cerebellum can affect that. Um, Somebody, if you have, tightness in the muscles, they're not obviously not going to be able to reach as far. So, two big ones would be changes in muscular tone, and the other one would be changes in balance side to side. If I was to pick out two of the largest things that I think that could really influence that test, it would be those two.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And in regards to like if someone were to implement some corrections into their program, how often do you think they really need to do it to see a change, and then how long should it take really during the session?
Well, everyone's different. So, I mean, you covered neuroplasticity a little bit with Mike when I was listening to that podcast, which was awesome, by the way.
Yeah, that was
Um,
actually the second highest listened one actually.
yeah, man, Mike is a smart guy. Um, but basically, what you could look at, there's three ways of building, you know, neuroplasticity, we'll say, which is going to in turn affect the outcome of this test. And basically, that's frequency, intensity, and duration. It's just like going to the gym. If you go to the gym every day, probably going to get a pretty sick six pack. If you go to the gym one day and you do 5,000 sit-ups or whatever, yeah, you'll probably get some gains, but you're just going to be really sore. Or you can go to the gym and try to do one sit-up with 800 pounds on you, which is also not going to build the six-pack abs.
Yeah, yeah.
So the more frequently somebody does these, obviously taking into account rest and recovery and stuff like that, but the more frequently someone does, the targeted biofeedback, the better the results are going to get. So during the study, I think they did it for 3 times a week for 6 weeks, I believe, and they had really, really good results. They had a drop in the occurrence of athletic injuries and stuff like that. So I would say minimum 3 times a week,
Mm-hmm.
would it be a good starting point to implement it.
Okay. That sounds easy. That's like I mean, actually I should ask I'll ask you this. So I've looked up before on the American College of Sports Medicine website. They have like a very basic ACL prevention program.
Mhm.
So when people look up things like ACL prevention, then how is this any different, or is it the same, or does it have aspects of each other really?
I'm probably both, right? They probably have similarities and differences. I guess the one thing I'm that I think we need to take into a greater account is the individuality of the patient, or the individual we're testing it for, right? Is because the imbalances that you have are not the same imbalances I have, so why would we do the exact same program? But that being said, if you're doing one and you send it to me and I do it, I'm still going to get gain out of it.
Yeah.
Um,
You were just saying
so
it wouldn't really hurt you, but it wouldn't help you as much as if we tested and found your deficiencies.
yeah, or as if we tailored that specific treatment plan to the individual.
Okay. Tangent question. What type of repairs are you doing on your house since we spoke?
Man, I totally bit off more than I could chew on this house. So I'm a little bit of I guess a handyman or a jack of all trades. So I bought this house that was built in 1906, and I completely gutted it, moved walls, rewired it, replumbed it, re-drywalled it. So right now I'm currently working on the finishing touches on taping and mudding so that I can get textured and painted and refinish the floors. And it's been a total nightmare. And I had a baby during that time, so I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Oh wow. Did you do like a whole like baby room and everything like that? That was like number one.
Yeah, so actually we're not even living in the house right now. We're staying elsewhere while I'm doing this because it was such a major renovation, but I'm hoping that I'll have her buttoned up here in the next 3-4 months.
You're not doing it. Are you doing it on your own, or you have like you giving pizza like people pizza and beer to help you out, or?
Oh man, I'm doing most of it by myself. My father-in-law helps me, and I got a buddy that helps me quite a bit, but for the most part, I'm on my own.
Yeah, I've done some repairs. I think we spoke about like I think the The absolute worst that I would ever want to do again is mudding. That
Oh,
is.
it's so bad. So bad. It's so tedious too. And I'm a little bit like a perfectionist, so I'm like, oh man, that's got a tiny little ripple right there. You're gonna be able to see that. She's like, my wife's like, no, you won't. We're gonna texture over it. I'm like, nah, gotta sand it, put another coat on.
I bet you have nightmares of that yellow sponge that you just keep wetting and just like.
Oh yeah. When you're wet sanding, you're like, man, I look awful. I got all this dust everywhere and I'm just muddy.
Yeah, it's the worst. And you can't even like do it all in one setting. You have to just wait.
hmm It's literally like watching mud dry.
Yeah, literally. Plaster though, I think.
Oh, it's so bad.
Oh gosh, I feel I think we should go into maybe some. You said you had some corrections for people to do, or some. I don't want. I never want to give anyone like the idea that they can rehab their own stuff. But what do you use with your people, and do you have any examples of them improving from it?
Yeah, so I use a lot of like mirror stuff. I use a lot of mirror therapy. Where I'll have somebody, do a certain movement while watching themselves in the mirror, and then I'm actually like guiding them through it using voice commands. That's a big one, because then they can kind of internalize that and start to apply that. I use a lot of bands actually, so I'll use like TheraBands, and I'll make them do, the athletic position while they're shuffling or whatever, and I'm talking them through it. We have like we've videoed people before while they're doing it, and then they have them break down their own movements. Yeah, I mean, it's imagination is the limit. Basically, if you can figure out a way that you can, prime that system, I guess, then the better results you're going to get. And also doing it frequently, right?
Yeah. Well, it almost sounds like you're having a like I've actually had a guy do this yesterday. So two people in the office happen to be doing the same rehab, or the same one rehab exercise at the time. So I'm like, hey, this is what we're gonna do today. And I said, look at that guy. What do you think he's doing wrong? So I was making him break it down.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
is it kind of like you're having them build awareness of almost how to coach it so they can do it with themselves?
Yeah. So for instance, I had one my brother-in-law's in high school, and I was helping their basketball team with an off-season weight program, right? So I'm like, I want you. There's this one kid, we'll call him Joe. Joe's doing this, and I'm like, you're gonna injure yourself because your weight is too high and you have terrible form, right? So what I made him do is I literally just made him do the movement with no weight in front of a mirror so I could show him what he was doing wrong. I'm like, I want you to do it 15 times, perfect, and then we'll think about putting weight on there. Well, after I had him watch himself do it, and that movement got ingrained, so to speak, he was able to do it with weight. Now, I didn't let him go up to the heavy weight that he was using, but he was able to do weight doing that movement appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a squat is what it was. When he was squatting, he was really getting like a medial deviation of his left knee. Well, when we took him out and I made him just do it in front of a mirror, I'm like, now watch that knee. Don't let it move. Don't let it go medially. And after he did it 15 times in the mirror, we added a little bit of weight. He's able to do it, and we kind of built up from there.
Yeah. Was he irritated that he was not up to his weight that he was already playing with, or?
Yeah, I think that at that point, especially males in high school, they always want to be like, the tough guy. They want to do the most weight and stuff like that. And you just kind of got to preach to them like, it doesn't matter the amount of weight if you're doing it wrong. You want to do it right. And also, you don't want to injure yourself trying to look like, a total stud in the weight room in the off season and not be able to play.
Yeah, I agree. I have a couple people that have come in here that they asked me to assess their deadlifting or squatting form. So I just leave an empty bar, or I give them a dowel first to start with too sometimes. And so they do it really crappy, and I'm like, "What's the deal?" And they're like, "Well, there's not enough weight on it. I can't get any feedback." I'm like, I don't think it really matters. You should be able to control your body, weight or not,
Right.
So, but I don't know how many years it takes them to finally realize, or if it takes them one good injury to start respecting their body or not. But I don't know. So,
Yeah, and I mean, people use biofeedback all the time. They just don't really realize it, right? So you're doing it right there.
yeah, yeah. I don't know I'm doing it. I'm just I don't know these fancy words that you guys have, man. I never use them.
Well, and it seems like there's not one good cookie cutter answer for what is biofeedback. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bio, life, feedback.
Yeah. I had this. There was an article I was reading. It was on external, internal cueing, and then there was another one. I forget. I thought it was intrinsic, but it was basically me telling you to screw your foot into the ground. If we're talking about squatting,
Hmm.
you thinking about spreading your like turning your hips out versus not thinking about it and your body just knowing what to do. And they were just saying it took so long. It took like professional athletes years and years and years and years of practice to finally be able to do stuff without thinking about it.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you have any experience with timeline of when it finally kind of sticks.
Oh man, I couldn't even venture a guess. I guess it depends on the person. Depends on their, everything. Metabolic capacity of their brain, depends on the amount of activation you get, depends on, I mean, there's so many factors that go into that.
Mm-hmm.
All I can say is the more often you do it, or like the more frequently, the better you're going to get at it, right?
Yeah, yeah. With upper extremity conditions, what's your experience with biofeedback in upper extremity?
Oh, I guess this isn't, it's not necessarily an injury, but so I have a patient that actually came in. She was referred to me by another physician, by a physical therapist, and she had developed a frozen shoulder, right? And then on top of that, she also developed complex regional pain syndrome in that side. And a lot of what I did with her was biofeedback, right?
Mm-hmm.
1 point, 2 points. What does this feel like? And then I would have her watch it in the mirror. So is this is this 1 point or 2 points? I'm going to draw a letter on your arm. What does that letter look like? And then she's watching in the mirror. Oh, that's an F or whatever. And we got really, really good results with that. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that you can use it wherever you want to use it.
Wow. So actually I know that I'll be off topic, but so can you explain complex regional pain syndrome? Because that one's like I wouldn't even want that in my office. Like it freaks me out. It's
Yeah. It was a difficult case for sure. It was fun though, when you get those hard cases and you're like, all right, I'm just going to take it low and slow and figure my way through this. So basically what it was is it actually started out with this particular patient as tennis elbow. Well, then the tennis elbow, slowly migrated up into the shoulder, and then the shoulder, she developed frozen shoulder. And then all of a sudden she couldn't even use her right arm at all because like if she tried to grab a pencil, it would shoot pain all the way up her arm. So as far as like what it is, well, I mean, it's a compartment that's, in pain a lot.
you can you even touch the skin?
With her, I couldn't to start. No,
Yeah.
no sort of like tactile stimulus or anything like that. She was an absolute wreck with that. And it took me a long time. It took me like 8 months to get it, to where the point where she was functioning at like 90% of pre-injury status, we'll say. But prior to even coming to me, she'd had it for over a year. So it was like total nightmare for her,
Oh my God.
She's a high up professional, and she was like, I'm thinking about quitting my job. I can't do what I'm supposed to do. Like I'm falling behind, so it was a really debilitating thing for her.
Yeah. So explain how then biofeedback would help with that.
So, this is simplifying the case a little bit because it was difficult, but with her, she had no sort of spatial awareness of where that arm was at. One of the things that I found really, really interesting with her was when I would do a test where I would like, all right, close your eyes. I'm going to bend your hand up or down, bend your finger, I'm going to flex your finger or extend your finger. I want you to tell me what I'm doing. I'm like, all right, what is that? And she's like, I'm not really sure. It was almost like she developed a hemi-neglect where she was starting to ignore that whole extremity. So then I would literally have her watch me doing stuff to it, like at first it was really light. So I took a paintbrush and I would paint her arm, and I'd be like, I want you to watch this. Now, should that hurt? No, it shouldn't hurt. It's a paintbrush, so I stuff like that. And then we moved up to, all right, I'm going to take this paper clip and I'm going to touch it with one end of it or both ends of it. I'd bend it like a horseshoe, like one side, two sides, and at first she couldn't do it with her eyes closed, so I would have her watch me and I would have her verbalize it. All right, that's 1 point. All right, that's 2 points. All right, 1 point, 2 point. We work our way up. I was really, a big thing too is I adjusted her extremities. If you don't know where a joint is, there's not much better feedback than giving, an adjustment to her fingers, elbow, shoulder, whatever you want to do. Now you have to apply that in a very, delicate manner, because someone with complex regional pain syndrome, the last thing you want to do is fire that up by giving them a big, glenohumeral adjustment. But yeah, I mean, I did a lot of stuff with biofeedback in her upper extremity via like vision and proprioception too. So
yeah. So what was her homework? Kind of the same stuff. You just give her a toothbrush and or paintbrush and a paperclip, and she had to do that pretty frequently, I'm guessing, right?
oh yeah. I saw her a lot too to start with. You know, in my practice, I like to see people a lot initially, and then I kind of like to teach them to do a lot of the stuff at home so that they can, you know, not become extremely reliant on me. But yeah, I had her doing a lot of stuff like that. I also had her doing some other stuff that I'd found during her neurological exam. But that's probably topic for another podcast.
So with that kind of case, I know it's an extreme case. Gosh, I feel like this should be like a whole, this should be like a whole different podcast. With a case like that, then I'm sure she had lots of other things going on. She probably had, probably want to move her arms. She probably had tissue tightness. She probably had a lot of things.
Oh yeah.
Why did you choose to work with the neurological system first?
Because I guess that I think the way I see it is your brain sets the tone for everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if you have that it comes back to that why question. Well, she's got increase in tone in the right side of her body. Well, why is that? You know, is it one day that she woke up and her muscles were just like, I'm just going to tighten up for no reason? No, there's some, you know, the brain is the one sending the stimulus. So that's really why I guess it's like that whole top-down thing. The brain sets the tone for everything. So if you can influence the brain, then you can influence the systems.
Mm-hmm. So I'll migrate a little away from the shoulder case since we were talking about lower. I guess the topic of this is lower extremity.
Yeah, it can be whatever extremity. How's that?
Yeah. Well, I always think actually when I was first starting practice, it was easy for me to talk to patients about like lower extremity conditions because you can talk about closed chain, right? You can say this correlates to this because of that and blah, blah, blah. But arm, elbow, shoulder were a little bit tougher for me, especially wrist.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah,
I don't know. It's I still have a hard time doing with unless they're handstand athletes, you know?
Right.
So going back to the non-traumatic lower extremity stuff, then what type of athletes, is there one of them that you can think about that would be an exclusion to this, that would be excluded to benefit from biofeedback or learn how their body moves?
No, I don't. I honestly don't think so, man. I think any athlete, especially one that wants to perform at a high level, could definitely benefit from doing biofeedback. You know, it doesn't matter if you want to be, you know, a swimmer or you want to be a badminton player, you know, hockey player, football player. It doesn't matter. There's athletic and dynamic movements involved in every single one of those sports. So I think that, I mean, maybe not for, you know, probably not going to develop a lower extremity injury in swimming, but it could happen. You know, if you're doing a kick turn,
yeah, you're right.
It definitely could happen. So I mean, I think that any athlete could really benefit from doing stuff like this.
You know, I remember we talked about on the phone a while ago. It was about matching where, let's just say we're talking about throwing a football to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't it matching where the football was going versus where the eyes were tracking versus where they would step or something of that nature? Because that was an aspect of, we consider that biofeedback then?
Oh, I mean, you could, I guess. That's the problem is like no one has a good answer.
Okay. I can't wait to have that on that three-way conversation. Just what does biofeedback go?
Yeah. It's like, oh, it goes here. It goes to your parietal lobe. No, it goes to the occipital lobe first. Well, it goes, you know, temporal lobe through auditory stimulus. Well, it probably goes all three places.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Oh, there's just so many places. I mean, it goes all over the place, and it just depends on the way you want to utilize it. You know, using biofeedback through, you know, proprioception or something like that is not the same as using visual cues. You know, it goes to different areas, but if it works, it works. You know, who cares how it works if it works, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. So for everyone that does that we're alluding to the idea that we're going to have a group conversation, actually, and this will be the first one with all the functional neurologists that I've had on so far. So 3 of them, and we're going to discuss all these topics, and you're going to be one of them.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I love Eric and I love Mike. They're both super fun guys, so it should be a good time.
Oh, it should be amazing. I assume it's not to say like my job is hard to be the moderator, but I'm not going to have to say a thing.
No. No, you'll probably have to fight to squeeze a word in edgewise.
You're probably right. I'm probably gonna go like, I'm just gonna start snapping at you guys. Okay, changing topics now. Is there anything that you think we've missed so far on this concept?
No, I don't think so. I think that the take-home point that I want, like, everybody that's listening to really know is that, people can benefit from biofeedback, but I think that people can benefit more from targeted biofeedback. I think that if you apply feedback based on findings of the particular individual, you're going to get better results than if you do a blanket treatment plan.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's about the only thing I would really like to emphasize, I guess, is that you don't treat the injury, but after it happens, if you can prevent it. You know what I mean? So if you look at a patient and you're like, man, this guy has a really, really poor, anterior reach during the SCAR, the STAR excursion balance test, look at some stuff that can address that, and look at for some possible causes as to why that can happen. Because if you can correct why it's happening in adjunct to doing the therapies to prevent the injury, then you're just, it's a win-win on both ends.
Mm-hmm. So earlier we talked about giving them I know we alluded to it already with some of the mirror stuff and everything, but what are 3 things that someone can easily do within 5 minutes or so? Let's say 5 minutes each, where they can work on biofeedback if they had a positive STARS excursion test.
Yes. Okay. So, a lot of it would be working on their balance, I would say. And that would be like, standing on a Bosu ball and watching themselves in the mirror. You could do it one leg, then the other leg, then both legs, and trying to do squats on there. That'd probably take you 5 minutes right there, right? One leg, other leg, both legs, squat on the Bosu ball.
Yeah, when you do when you do one leg at a time, it takes forever.
Yeah. So it's like, that's 5 minutes easy. Another one would be like doing box squats while watching themselves in the mirror. Make sure that there's no sort of deviation of the knee when they're doing the movement. Do 3 sets of 10. That's like 5 minutes. And then what'd you say? 3?
Three.
Yeah. Then you could do stuff like dynamic movements with kettlebell, or you could do like a TheraBand and wrap it and really work the external rotators of the hip by wrapping the TheraBand around it and doing shuffles both directions. That's probably 5 minutes right there.
Okay. It sounds like all of them really don't require too much weight or load, right?
No. I think as far as obviously if you increase weight, it's going to increase the amount of feedback you get, right? Because you're recruiting more muscle spindles, the Golgi tendon organs, the joint mechanoreceptors and all that are firing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be with a lot of weight.
Okay. I have only a few more questions for you. You ready for them?
I hope so. Let's do it.
Okay. What is your favorite dinner?
My favorite dinner? Oh man, I'm a steak and greens kind of guy. My father-in-law's a butcher, so I get like prime cuts of meat all the time. It's awesome.
Oh man, I bet you got good meat up there.
Oh yeah. I love hunting too, so like venison steak's always good too.
Have you ever cooked anything on like a? I guess these are other questions. Have you cooked anything on a salt block?
I have not.
Yeah, I don't. I just tried recently. I tried a couple weeks ago, and it was ground beef, which is a really not. Or sorry, it was ground bison, and I don't think you're supposed to have everything touch the salt because it was the saltiest freaking meal I've ever had in my life. Like I couldn't do it. So I think you got to have really thick steaks.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah. Okay. And would you rather buy a steak from a steak house, or would you rather cook your own?
Nah, man, I'd rather cook my own.
Okay. Just I agree with you. I don't see any point in going to steakhouses. They don't make steak as good as we do at home.
That's right.
So lastly then, how can everyone reach you? Do you have any social medias and so on?
Yeah, so got a couple ways of reaching us. We have a website online. It's northlakeschiropractic.com. Our Facebook page is North Lakes Chiropractic and Functional Neurology. And yeah, those are the 2 best ways of getting a hold of us.
Okay, cool. Are you active on any social media? Have people reached out on that, or?
Facebook's about it, man. I'm like totally technology illiterate.
Yeah, I think you're better off. I only respond to really one. The other ones I just kind of like let it fly.
Yeah.
Personally.
Like I'm sure we have a Twitter or something, but I don't know that I've ever like even turned it on.
It'll take away so much from your mudding time. It's not even worth it.
Oh man, I hate you so much. Now I just got to think about that for the rest of the day so I can go home and mud my house some more.
Oh man, it's gonna be amazing once it's done. And the only one who's gonna see any of those imperfections is you.
I know, but I'll see them, and that's the problem.
You better get a lot of wall art.
Oh man, yeah, lots of paintings.
A lot of mirrors for biofeedback.
There you go.
Okay, actually, one more thing. Sorry. So,
No problem.
do you have any video references of any of this stuff, or do you have any of them that in case people want to see the test?
Yeah, so I'll actually I have it up on my computer. You can basically just Google Star Excursion balance test, and there is a single leg balance test on there. I can also send you that link in an email so you can link it at the bottom of the podcast if they want to see it.
Okay, cool.